Is it a struggle? Yes, we have to realize our strengths and our weaknesses. Hi, and welcome to Why Not? And I'm your host, Janice, helping others to reach their goals, spiritually, emotionally, physically, helping others to reach their goals and get where they need to be. Today we have a great topic. It is fire to faith. We have a family here, the Zolikov family, that experienced a fire recently in the town of Bloomington, Illinois. Everything was wiped out and restored by God. So I'm interviewing them today to talk about how this fire has transformed them and their faith. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. Today I have Pastor Sid Zolikov from Jesus Lighthouse of Love in Lansing, Illinois.
Yes.
I have a son, CJ Zolikov, and his beautiful wife, Chasity Zolikov, and the wonderful baby Mateo, who's just been here not even a week.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. So, just recently you had a fire in your house, and you live in Bloomington, but I want to get to a little bit beginning. Why did you come to Bloomington from Illinois, or from Chicagoland?
So what brought me to Bloomington was my dad always told me that a man is supposed to be the provider, and he taught me responsibility when I was a kid. I watched him growing up as a kid, and I remember everything he did for my mom. So I wanted to do the same thing for my wife. When I decided to get married, I was like, all right, I'm going to eventually start a family. So why not just step up and be responsible now like my parents taught?
Correct. That's a very good thought. Yes. Good father to lead you there. Mm-hmm. Perfect. And you traveled down here on your own with your wife.
Yeah.
And I assume you had a pocket full of money when you came?
No, I only came down here with $10 in faith. That's it. And 2 credit cards.
So you had a lot of faith.
Basically, yeah.
And $10. Okay. So how did you feel, Dad, that he actually left home to venture out as a father?
Well, the father side of me was like, son, I didn't know about the $10 in the credit cards, but it was kind of like I wasn't ready to let him go. I was happy he was married. It was still under our roof. But when he said to me, Dad, I'm leaving, it was hard as a father. And then as a pastor, I had to really trust God to take care of my son and my daughter. Mm-hmm. And that was challenging for a little while. And I'm astonished by what I see now.
Teach them in the way they should go? Yes.
Lots of hours of prayer and personal conversations between he and I. So I thank God that it's manifesting now.
And how long have you been married, CJ?
So we've been married 2 years. Next January I make 3 years.
Oh, wow. 3 years. Mm-hmm. And you have the baby that just came this past week or so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So you came down here and the baby's new. Now, we go back to a few weeks ago. You guys had a wonderful baby shower. Wonderful couple, getting up a baby shower. Describe that day.
So the day of the baby shower, I actually had my parents come over as usual. Mm-hmm. It's like they come and visit like every 2 weeks, I want to say, sometimes every other weekend. And we had a bunch of gifts. We didn't have to buy anything. God's laid upon a bunch of people's heart to just donate and give us stuff.
Okay.
And it was like, at the time, I'm like, man, he's like overwhelmed with gifts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A blessing, because people from your family, friends, and your father's church, and you even did it on Zoom, and everyone's there joyous. Furthest from your mind that any tragedy is going to happen.
Long way from the mind.
That's true.
And it's amazing how sometimes when we have everything's good, no one thinks anything bad can happen at all.
Mm-mm.
True.
None of us were.
Especially not around that time.
Right. Mm-hmm. Thief comes in the middle of the night.
None of us were prepared for a fire. Like I said, their first apartment filled with boxes of Pampers and wipes and we had the Zoom, and we had like 30 plus people on the Zoom, and it was a big family event because my mom is a Gigi, as you will, for the second time, and this is the new one in the family, and we were all on 10, as the young people say, but lo and behold, some hours later, came something that kind of rocked us all.
Rock you all, because you're thinking everything is going great. And the baby was actually due right after the baby shower. You guys were expecting the baby. You thought maybe Monday the baby's going to come in. The baby shower was Sunday or Saturday, and you thought 2 days later, oh, this baby's coming on Monday.
That's what I was hoping at that point.
Yeah, that's what we was hoping.
That was your hoping. So what happened on that Monday after the baby shower? You were at work.
Okay, so you mean that Sunday?
Yeah.
That Sunday.
So that Sunday, I was at work and I was getting ready to leave. I mean, I was leaving out at 4:30 and I had to work 4:30 till I think we closed at 11 that night. No, 10 o'clock. I'm sorry, it was a Sunday. And she called me around 8 when I was getting ready to walk out the office and do someone's bank. So my driver couldn't go home. I was supposed to catch him out at the end of the night. She called, said, hey, it's a fire at the apartment. I said, what? What do you mean it's a fire? So I basically told all my people, like, hey, I got them together. I said, all right, I know I'm the only manager here, but I don't know who's going to close tonight. Sorry, but I got to go. It's a fire at my place. And I just jetted on out of there.
Family first, you have to.
Yeah.
Right. So your wife called and it's a fire. You don't expect that. You just don't.
No. And while he's en route, my daughter calls my wife. She's upstairs, I'm downstairs, and my wife just screams and yells like, the best way I can put it, like a horror movie on 10, because she
Wow.
I mean, it echoed through the house, because we're the only ones at home now. And she comes running down with her phone, and I'm looking at her, and she's like, the house is on fire. The house is on fire. I'm like, what? And Shoni's, my wife, she's kind of like, what we do, and we're trying to direct her and instruct her on what to do. And I kind of was just sitting there like blown, because I'm like, okay, everything we just had is going up in smoke.
Right, it seemed like every last blessing just went
Like
up in
that.
smoke, and you're bewildered and wondering what's going on.
Yes.
Now, Chasity, you were actually at home at the time of the fire.
I was. What was I doing?
Did the alarm even go off? Anything?
The alarm didn't go off.
Oh.
It was. I mean, it was just like a regular Sunday night, but this night I was sanitizing bottles. You know, getting ready for the baby's arrival, washing his clothes, putting him in his room, getting his room together, getting the baby back together.
I'm just happy as ever.
Very much so. I had a good nap that day, so I had extra energy. And I mean, all of a sudden it was just a hard, bamming knock on the door. And I went to go open the door, and they were like, "You need to get out. It's a fire." And I mean, me just not thinking, I just hurry up, you know, grab my keys, my purse, put on some slippers, and I just left out the door. I mean, not knowing what to expect, because I didn't know how far, you know, the fire was. I mean, it could have been right next to me, and I mean, you know, the alarm's just not going off. So, just looking at the fire, you know, walking out, I'm just...
Do you know who knocked on your door? I mean...
I think they were neighbors from across the street. So, luckily, I mean, it's good people out there, you know, who would...
A good Samaritan.
Yeah, a good Samaritan who would, you know, knock on our doors to make sure we're okay, make sure everybody is out.
Because unfortunately nowadays, what a lot of people do, I hate to say it, is they think about themselves. They don't think about somebody else.
Yes.
And when you see a fire, first thing people do is you get out, and then you worry about people else. You go to that safe tree, we're told. Don't go and worry about anyone else, because they may have gotten out a different way. But some good Samaritans knocking on doors, which was a blessing for you, because you didn't smell anything, and it was on your floor.
Yeah, it was.
A few doors down, right?
Yep, 36 people were displaced.
How many people again?
36.
Wow, 36 people. Wow.
20 apartments.
20 apartments wiped out.
Wow.
Total 36 tenants.
Now, when you got there, I know you were just bewildered seeing this.
Yeah.
I I know you're praising God that your wife was saved, but
So,
you also had animals.
yeah, so when I got there, the first thing I did was I looked, said, oh, it's not my place. It's 2-3 doors down. So I started praying. I'm like, God, don't let it get to my stuff. My son, I just had his baby shower. So it took about 30 minutes to spread. As it started to spread, I looked up and I was so mad I couldn't even cry. I'm just like, man, God, I just moved out here. But you know what? I'm not even going to trip because, I mean, when I came out here, I only had $10. And like I said, the 2 credit cards, I mean, if you did it then, now I have a job as a manager, I know you'll do it again.
So your faith stayed strong, knowing that God multiplied my $10, and look what I have. Even though He takes it away, God will give it back, just like Job.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Dad, what are you thinking in your faith too with this? I mean,
Well,
some people wonder about that. Bad things happen to good people, and where's that?
well, we live in a world that's fallen. Things do happen to both the believer, their family members, and those that don't believe. As a believer, as a father first, I was concerned about the welfare of my daughter-in-law. And my son, I knew he was en route, but being a father, I wanted to go first. I wanted to be there. We're 2 hours away. So I was grabbing my keys, and he's like, no, Dad, stay. And then my daughter-in-law kept saying, no, Dad, stay. So I'm like, oh my God. So my faith was being tried because as a father, like I said, instinctively, you want to be there for your children. And it was challenging, but my wife and I, we prayed. And when they said the fire had now progressed so far that it literally was now in their apartment.
Yeah. And you're watching this.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it.
And he sent us a video.
For like 20 minutes, I was just standing there like, man.
And you could hear him in the video saying, wow, God, I can't believe my stuff is going. My son. And so.
Right. Wow. And then you lost one of your cats during that.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. One of them got out, the other one I don't know about what happened to him, so.
So, wonderful blessing that no one was hurt in this.
None, nobody, but lots of property was destroyed. My daughter and I went by there today. This is my first time seeing the apartment since the fire. And to see it this evening, it was like, wow. And I'm just thankful that God blessed her to get up because she had a nap and her sister called and God used her sister to wake her up. Cause one thing about my daughter, like my grandson over here, when she's asleep, you better not bother her. But God used her sister she would respond to, and she woke up, had a little conversation. About 10 minutes later, my wife is like, the house is on fire. The house is on fire. So I thank God for that because I know my daughter over here, she's like my grandson. Don't wake him up.
So even another miracle, God had your sister call you within 10 minutes of this fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, when I was pregnant before, I could sleep soundly, and you're not going to hear. I mean, you're not going to hear the smoke detector. You're not going to hear a pound on the door. So if you weren't awake.
Yeah, she'd have been.
So we had a Samaritan, we had your sister. So God was definitely completely all over you, and blessings.
God is never caught off guard.
Never caught off guard.
No. For the bad or the good, he's always prepared.
Right.
Always.
So, now you've lost everything, unfortunately, and there wound up being a pouring out of kindness, love, and support from the community, which you don't hear that often anymore. I hate to say it, everything in the news now, all you hear is bad, 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 or people protesting, racial tension. You don't hear the good in news anymore. But this was a different story. Please explain how that happened, how it changed.
So a general manager whose name is Matt, I called him after I talked to my parents. I'm like, hey, I don't know. So my house is on fire. I'm helping out at another store, which he knows because he's my boss, but I'm in charge of 3 corporate stores. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to return to work, what's going on. He says, hey, don't worry about it. Come stay with me, you and your wife. So I'm like, okay. So I go there for the night. So, I mean, I was a little excited because that's my favorite general manager. I worked at about 20 restaurants in the last 2 years, and I could never find a place where I actually liked the management.
Wow.
So now that I'm a part of management, I find somebody that I'm like, oh man, we click like this. It was like, yeah, perfect timing. I can go to his house.
And even that's amazing that most people have employers, but how many of them would actually open their doors to one of their employees, even for something tragic? They may say, oh, I'm sorry, or maybe they're nice, here's money for a hotel for the night, but make sure you're at work tomorrow. But your boss actually opened his doors, his own personal home. And he is actually Caucasian, a different race, and he let you in. And you don't hear even about that racial harmony. So how was that? And how did it make you feel? Just
Honestly, it made me realize, and I think it made some of my friends realize, because some of my friends, like, how should I put it? I tell them all the time, like, all white people aren't against us or bad. So it made me realize, like, man, it's still people out there that's not stereotypical. Because, like, with me having dreadlocks, I face a lot of stereotypes sometimes. So, there's people that's still out there that's not stereotypical. They're nice. They're willing to help out. They actually care about black people.
And they don't see color.
Yeah, and they don't see color. They have a heart. It's more about being nice, and God used them. So that's why I made him Mateo's godparents, and his name is Matt. So Mateo actually means Matthew, and my general manager name means.
Wow.
It's actually Matthew. So.
Wow, so that's just wonderful. I know that made them happy as ever.
Yeah.
When I first told him before the fire, like a month ago, I'm like, hey, my wife likes Mateo, but I don't know what I'm gonna name him. He's like, name him that, name him that.
And it's amazing how God sets up the right people in the right place and the right time.
Yes, because God used them to literally, my son was, his wife actually called the local television station. And my son was able to tell what actually happened.
On the local news.
And people began to pour out, literally boxes of clothes, strollers, carriers, money. He said one time he was in the store, someone blessed him with $100 in his hand.
Right.
Yeah. I had a lady come in, she recognized me from the news. She emptied out her whole purse and said, God told me to give you this.
Wow. So God moves people so just wonderful. I think of Jesus, the greatest commandment of all is love. And love thy neighbor as thyself. And you don't hear these heartwarming stories anymore. You don't hear people wanting to go out and help other people.
Yeah.
So even Pastor, for you, how did that move you in your faith? I know that you're 2 hours away, you can't help your son, but God sent others to help your son.
Being a dad, I was like, okay, now I'm going in dad mode. It doesn't matter what my son and daughter says, I'm going into dad mode. And so my wife and I, we prayed, and she's like, see it, just let God do what he does. And we agreed that God, we was going to trust him. And what really moved me, my daughter told my wife that they had received some money from New York, and it was $2. And he said that literally the money looked like that was the last $2 they had. And I was like, wow, God, you have even in the pandemic people blessing.
From New York, that I've never been in New York, so I don't know anybody in New York actually. So I think it was an older couple, and I'm like, man, shipping something from here to New York ain't cheap. So I'm pretty sure it cost them more to ship the $2. But the fact that they even thought about giving anything, it could have been 50 cents. It was like, man, somebody went this far just to send us something to help.
Right. I think of in the Bible the lady who gave her last money.
The last two mites.
Yes.
And God said she gave all she had, and she was more blessed than the ones that had gave out abundance.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a testing of my faith, because it was like, okay, now my son went down there. They're a long way from my wife and I, and bam, here comes this fire.
Right. Wipe out everything.
We were in scramble mode, but we couldn't get in scramble mode because every time we would try to get involved, Dad would send help. monies, clothes, favor, like even the apartment we're sitting in now.
Right.
God blessed for him to get here.
And how did you get this barn? I know you were hoping to find a home for your family, because I know the whole thought of putting your family back into another apartment, and something can happen like that, another tragedy, someone else could have just harmed your family. And you couldn't find a home, the financing, so you wind up getting this apartment that you're in now, that we're interviewing at. How'd you get this one?
So, it's pretty funny. So, it's actually a miracle. So, after looking at houses, they opened up a new factory out here, so everybody was bidding like $50,000 more than asking price.
Wow.
So, this was actually the last apartment available in this complex, and I called all around. There was really nothing that would fit us. So, somebody actually signed on to this place and paid their security deposit, but the day they were supposed to come and pick up their keys, so they did the application. The day they were supposed to sign their lease, photocopy of the lease, and pick up their keys, the council never showed up.
Never showed up.
Never showed up. So happened this apartment was ready, and the other apartment that they did have, the one more that was left, wasn't going to be ready for 30 days. So that was a miracle.
So much for a miracle. I mean, that was like God. He knew. He definitely knew he had this planned. So God had it planned, because he could have had someone else came who would have moved in. But he had someone who had no intentions of moving in. He didn't intend for them to move in. And the right day, the right time, you walk in, hey, this person didn't show up. Do you want this apartment? Yeah, absolutely a miracle.
Only Dad. Only Dad.
So how has your faith changed? And how have you changed from this whole experience?
So before the fire, you know how you think you're supposed to thank God every day for everything you have?
Right.
It would be like times I would forget too, as much as, even though I know I was always taught every day, no matter what, just thank him every day, no matter what. I kind of took it for granted. And now, so every day I wake up now, even when I'm shutting the door, I just thank God for me having the door to lock. Like when I was in the shower this morning, I'm like, man, it feels good to have a place again. Thanks, God. And then, so it made me realize at first when you try to take credit away from God, because it was like, even though God gave it to me, I was basically saying like, hey, I go to work for this. It's mine. I do this kind of thing. And it made me realize like, nah, it's not mine. It's all his. He just gave it to me. I'm basically, he's the owner. I'm the leaser.
Yes.
Basically. Yes. So it's like, yeah, it made me realize like, if you don't give God his credit, he'll take it away, but he'll always give you something back because he cares and he loves you, just to be compassionate and show you that he's still there, but don't forget.
Right, don't forget. And did you know, Pastor, or did you expect that, or something that told you that he was going to get back as much as he lost?
Well, one day, this happened on a Sunday. The week of, I would say Wednesday, Thursday, a mother we considered, she's saved and she loves Jesus. And she called my wife and I, and we were in the car, and they were still looking for an apartment, and we didn't know if the baby, like you said, everybody's expecting the baby to come.
Right, you're expecting
2 days later. But God held the baby in there at the right time until they moved in here. And she said, did anyone die? And we said, no. She says, the devil did not win.
Right.
And she's from Jamaica, so she kept saying to tell them the devil did not win. And they would get 3 times more than what they expected. And we're literally sitting in the midst of 3 times of what they had.
4 or 5 times, actually, more.
Right. Just
so
wonderful.
It was, God has shown himself to be faithful.
Yes.
And so this has taught me that no matter what the adversity, what the challenge, when you have a relationship with God, Dad will always do something that will blow your mind to show you, like my son said, his compassion.
Right.
So I'm really thankful. I am. My little Oso over there came, and now he has his own place. Cause like you said earlier, he was living with his general manager.
Right.
And so God bless where he didn't even have to stay long. So I'm thankful for
Week and a half. I told him 30 days, but God did it in a week and a half. So when I thought it was 30 days, he knew it was more than it was shorter than 30 days. So
And it's wonderful, wonderful blessing. It reminds me definitely of the story of Job, and thank God there was no loss of family, but how things were lost and he came back and he blessed you. And love is definitely the greatest of all, the greatest commandment, Jesus said. Love others as you would love yourself. And it's amazing how the outpour came from just strangers. And we don't have that anymore. We really don't. Especially in a time of COVID, you don't get people that are even reaching out to people. They're afraid to come near you, let alone the blessing is even just the $2 that came.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, yeah.
God timed it perfectly too, like the way he had it set up. Because literally, like 2 days after the fire, everyone got their stimulus checks. So it was like perfect timing. It was like everybody was willing to help out because they had that extra money.
Right. They were given a blessing that wasn't expected, and then they blessed others.
And I believe and know that it was not just the stimulus, because people had stimulus. It was many that didn't have stimulus money. That would just literally, he would be in the store, they would put it in his hand. My daughter would get money. So God literally favored them. You can have stimulus, but everyone doesn't want to release their stimulus.
Right.
So I know it was that. It strengthened my resolve that God is truly faithful. It did.
And have faith, and God will provide. He gives us his promises, and just a wonderful, wonderful blessing. Give a piece of advice for your children.
Well, my advice to them is to continue to trust God. I mean, he's seen, both of them are believers. But it's an awesome thing to hear my son talk about Dad. This was the one that really, my wife and I would have these long drawn out conversations. He's not listening. But to hear him say, and to know that even in his moment of pride, he was humbled, but he recognized, as it says in the word, the king that had everything, and God stripped him to let him know there's only one God that rules. And so he ended up finding himself that only one God rules.
Only one God rules, yes. And you guys welcome in your beautiful son, which is wonderful blessings. Wonderful blessing. I pray that God gives you more and more, and I hope the story actually inspires people to not only think about yourself, but think about others. And that's kind of what's missing in our world right now during the COVID, the racial tension, that people can come across all racial lines. It doesn't matter your ethnic background. It doesn't matter your social background, that you can help others and have a kind heart. So I want to welcome you, or thank you for coming on the show. I'm happy to hear about your blessings. I hope we're able to bless other people with your story. These are the Zolikovs. I will actually put up information if you guys want to write them, or write Pastor Sid from Jesus Lighthouse of Love Ministry in Lansing, Illinois. I'm Janice with Why and Why Not. We're here helping others to reach their goals. You can watch us on YouTube and Facebook and on Comcast and other channels. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful, blessed evening. And good night.